My YouTube channel has always had three founding values: self-sustainable, affordable, and organic. And in this video, we're going to be tying in those three concepts to bring you a gardening technique that I imported from my friends over in Ghana. It's a cool way of growing sweet potatoes that I think is going to be a game changer for a lot of us. Let's get to it. Hello everyone, thank you all so much for joining in. This is Donald from the Trini Gardener channel, and I can't tell you how excited I am to bring this gardening technique to you because it's a gardening technique that I have tried. It has been successful. In last week's video, you would have seen me do a garden harvest of sweet potatoes, and that for me, that was just a huge success. It's something that I never thought about before. I mean, I know about growing bags, right? You can get these grow bags in different plant shops. They're generally, I mean, not super expensive, but it's a bit of capital. If you want to get 10 grow bags, we're talking about a good few $100s. And for me, as a home gardener, especially for a home gardener who's just starting out, that's a lot of money to just put out. I mean, some people are able to, and that's fine and no problem with that. But I mean, a lot of people just want to be able to grow something with whatever they can find around their house. And nothing is wrong with that because it's all about being self-sustainable and also affordable and keeping it organic as much as possible. So in this video, we're going to be talking about growing sweet potatoes in bags, not a grow bag, not anything fancy. It's a bag that I'm sure probably 90% of you have and 100% of you can get either super cheap, we're talking $3, $4, $5, or you can have it free of charge. Just ask your neighbor and I'm sure you can get at least one of these bags and you can get growing right now. So go get a bag, pause the video, and I'll see you in a few minutes. I just realized I didn't tell you exactly what kind of bag to go look for and ask your neighbor for. You would have been confused. This is the kind of bag that we're talking about. Normally you get this kind of material bag with poultry feed, or even if you buy like bag soil, or if you get like some garden produce can come in these kind of bags. Very, very simple, typical bag that you can get all over Trinidad. So yeah, now pause the video and go ask your neighbor for a bag, and I'll see you back in a few minutes. Okay, so you're back. We're going to go over now to the potting up station. We're going to talk a bit about different types of bags, nothing expensive again, and we're going to talk about what you're going to be doing to grow your nice sweet potatoes inside of a bag and be nice, healthy, organic, and super affordable. Let's head over. Okay, so let's talk about this bag that we're going to be using to grow our sweet potatoes. This bag here is sort of like semi-permeable. So like if you put water through it, it's not going to settle, right? It's just going to roll out through the bottom here. So it's just like natural drainage. You don't even have to poke any holes or anything to this. It is going to have drainage all the time. And the good thing is you don't have to water it from above, because even if the water gets anywhere around, it's going to seep through and just get into the bag and keep your sweet potatoes nice and moist. So I really like using these bags. I would always recommend growing in these bags as very cheap grow bags that you can use. They don't survive very long, but they can definitely work. If you don't have a bag like this, you can also use a plastic bag. So, and I'm sure like everybody can source a plastic bag. It doesn't have to be a huge plastic bag. The only thing, of course, and I mean, it's a good thing because that means you're recycling and it's not going to end up in a landfill as soon as you would have. The only thing is that you're not going to get the benefit of that natural drainage that you had with like the feed bag. So you're going to have to make sure at some point to put some holes into your plastic bag if it is properly plastic. But the good thing about it is, of course, it's a plastic bag. So putting holes in is just a matter of putting your finger through, and you can have, your own drainage holes. I put a lot of drainage holes at the bottom, on the side, all over, just to make sure that there's no pocket of water that just remains stagnant and it will all drain out over time. The only thing with the plastic bag, you have to be very careful when you are watering. All right, so we're going to load up these bags and I'll talk to you a bit about how much dirt I put into each bag and why. So I generally try to average around maybe 1 gallon to 2 gallons of soil, at maximum 3 gallons of soil. Not that you can't put more, like you absolutely can put more if you wanted to, but it's just, I think, not very necessary, because sometimes you have this idea that you have to have a huge amount of soil to grow root crops, and it's not like, obviously sometimes having more soil can mean having a bigger yield. It can be, but it doesn't mean that having a small amount is not going to give you a good harvest. It's just something you don't need to worry about. And the other good thing about it with sweet potatoes is that they're really not so picky about how much nutrition they get. Like this soil, I honestly thought it was completely useless soil. That's why I moved it and I'm just using it for sweet potatoes. It was over there where I had shown you all I did my cucumbers. So yeah, I this soil is not the best soil by any means, and there is really no kind of nutrients that's additional here at all. There was just some cow manure mixed in at some point. Not very much. It was very sandy. This soil has been improved a bit over time with just some compost being just incorporated into it. But I will, this time I'll be putting a bit more nutrients into the soil itself. That could also be one of the reasons why um, in my harvest video, which you saw last week, some of the bags, the sweet potatoes weren't actually very huge, right? A lot of the bags, they were good size. I was happy, content, but I feel like they could have been bigger if I had, fertilized a bit more. So that's one of the things that I would recommend that you do with your sweet potatoes is that you keep, especially because it's in a bag and doesn't have that access to, just natural dirt. Like if you just were to grow on the ground, then you want to make sure and amend with something like your cow manure compost, your green waste compost, or I will be showing you all that I also use my worm castings of vermicompost. I didn't use it with the last harvest, the ones that were in the last harvest, the last set that I grew that you saw last week, but I will be using it this week because I think it'll be good for the fertilization. Another thing is that sunlight is very important with sweet potatoes. They want to have that full access to direct sunlight, and where I actually had them last time, and I'm gonna have them the same place because it's just where it's convenient for me, is underneath a Zabaca tree. So it has access to sunlight, but it's sort of partial at some times of the day. It's not the end of the world because I did get a harvest from it. It's just that with your sweet potatoes, as much as possible, give it that full 8 hours of sun, 9 hours, 10 hours. We have it in Trinidad, we have it in the Caribbean. So don't neglect that sunlight. That's why they have these leaves, because how these root crops grow, just like all of your root crops, is that the leaves go up, they gather that sunlight, they change that sunlight into energy, and then they use that energy to survive as a plant, and then they store the excess into tubers, which is what we call sweet potatoes. So really, really important to have that full sunlight with your sweet potatoes. Cool. So my plastic bag is all ready. I think in all it's probably like about 12 inches of soil that you have here. So I mean, not a huge amount at all. You don't need to have a huge amount of soil or land to grow your sweet potatoes. It's really not necessary at all. Okay, so here we have the 2 bags of soil that I just filled up. I'm going to be amending this soil as I told you all before. I'm using here my worm castings or vermicompost, whatever you want to call it, basically just worm manure. I'm just going to apply that to the top. It's not necessary to mix it, like incorporate it into the entire soil. I just kind of put it onto the top and then just kind of gently incorporate it just into that top layer and just water that in, and that is more than enough. It's very important when you're growing in bags. You can't treat it like how I normally treat like my sweet potato that's growing in like a raised bed or like in the recycled fridge that I had showed you all in previous videos. Bags tend, because it's less volume, it tends to dry out faster. So especially to make sure that the plant gets all the nutrients necessary, you have to make sure and keep on your watering with bags. And the same thing with containers as well. You want to make sure and water. I water these sweet potatoes once a day these days because it's just so hot. If there's rain, then I'll water it probably like 2 to 3 times a week. You don't want to flood the sweet potatoes. That can make them actually rot, of course. But once you have your correct drainage and you're checking your plants, you're listening to your plants, sticking your finger down into the soil, double checking the moisture, and you should be fine with that. It's really not it's not that serious. Sweet potatoes, they really they're able to rough it, which I love about these plants. You don't have to baby them up so much, but yeah, just make sure and check on the moisture because it does tend to dry out faster, and if it gets really dry and it gets really hard, then the sweet potatoes just won't grow. The tops will continue growing and the leaves will look really nice, but underneath there you're not going to get that growth in the tubers. And over here I have some of the leftover vines from what we harvested. Well, you all would have seen that video last week, but I just harvested earlier. So I'm going to be using these vines as slips. Remember, slips are the pieces of vine that we use to plant back. You can use any piece of the vine. We're just going to cut a few pieces and we're going to be using that to plant into our bags, into our grow bags that we just filled up there with that dirt, right? So I'll just take a little cutting here. I'll take it over to the wheelbarrow and I'll just show you the length that I cut these. Stuff people ask me. I know there are sometimes doubts and just questions, but it's really not complicated at all. I just try to give it maybe like 4 to 5 inches of the main stem, maybe like 2 or 3 leaves on it, could even be less. And that's a slip. I'm just going to stick it into the soil, and yeah, I keep it into the direction, right, that it had grown in. But I don't think it's that serious because it's a vine. It'll grow any which way you stick it into the ground. I'm like 90% sure that that is the case, right? I honestly sometimes forget which side is up and which side is down. I just stick it whichever side seems logical, and it always works out. Alright, so as I said, I'm not too worried about your direction. I just take whatever seems logical and just stick it in probably like 2 inches into the soil, and that is it. I don't even worry about how that leaf looks wilted there. It's going to bounce back. Within a week, you're going to see how well this is doing. Just once again, because it's in containers, you're going to make sure and keep the moisture good, nice and even with it, especially when you just planted it. So I just pre-moisten the soil. So it's not, I don't have to water again, but if you hadn't pre-moistened the soil, then, you know, make sure and water, especially when it's a new transplant. In this case here, it needs to have that moisture for the roots to start springing from the vine. And that's literally it, right? It's so simple, so easy. And within 4 months, we're going to have sweet potatoes in these bags again. And with the new nutrients that I put in, I'm just excited to see what the next harvest is going to be, because the soil is going to be improved over time, and we're going to be in good stewards of the land by making sure and improving our soil over time. And that's how simple it is. Everything here costs nothing, like the bags free, the soil free, recycled soil, and you could even grow from this little tiny sweet potato that I left here. I'm just going to stick this into the ground, and this is going to spring its own slips over time as well. So you can grow from the vine, which is what I prefer, but some people have asked if you can do it from sweet potato, like using the sweet potato itself as a seed. You absolutely can. Super easy, super simple. And there you go, how easy that was. You're now gonna have your sweet potatoes in just about 3 months to 4 months. I would leave it even for 4.5 months, push it maybe even 5 months. The more you leave it, the bigger the sweet potato is gonna get. So I mean, patience is key. If you don't have the patience, 3 months you should be checking now for sweet potatoes. You can actually like just kind of move aside the dirt and just see if you can see the top of a sweet potato. If you don't see anything, just cover it back up. Just be careful when you're doing it, so you don't hurt the plant, and you just leave it to let it grow some more. I've done it, and it's never really been a problem with the bothering the plant at all. So I know we can be curious sometimes, but yeah, shoot for that 4 months. Just try to, like, you know, get a habit of planting it and then forget it. Just forget it, and you know, when you forget it, the time's just going to pass by so quickly. You're not even going to realize that the sweet potato is ready. And you know, that's really what you want, so that you're not just waiting month by month and that kind of thing. So remember, of course, if you know someone who would be interested in this super affordable, super easy way to be self-sustainable and to grow nice, healthy organic food, then share this video and also share the channel with them to help them feed themselves and their family. Remember, as always, this has been Dylan with the Trini Gardener channel, and of course, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and you know, tag us in your videos and your pictures coming onto your garden. We're so excited, so happy, so motivated to see you all, you know, growing in your gardens, growing organic, growing in any way that you are able to with whatever space that you have. We're so happy to see it. So remember, this has been Dylan with the Trini Gardener channel, reminding you to get up and get growing. Take care.